The sweetest moment was the first warning. In the end, I'll tell you the phrase I wish I had said. Dear daughter, it's night, and the lamp's light illuminates the words I'm about to write. The silence is heavy, as if the world outside is holding its breath. I'm writing this so you don't repeat the same mistakes I made. I used to believe that being understanding was a virtue. I believed it so much that I ignored my own discomfort. Sometimes all I wanted was a safe place, a lasting hug, but what seemed like gestures of love turned into invisible strings that tied me down. There was a time, on a sunny afternoon, when he held my hand and said, "You are the best thing that has happened in my life." In that moment, my heart raced. That phrase sounded like music, but soon came the shadow, like a cloud covering the sun. He added, "I just want you to tell me where you are." It was worry disguised as love. The message was clear, but I didn't see it. "I care about you" became a mantra, and I never realized that it meant, I need to know everything about you to feel in control. And then, what was sweetness turned into a prison. After that, came that conversation. He looked at me with eyes full of expectation and began questioning my decisions. The pressure mounted, and I felt suffocated. It was then, without thinking, that I said, "I'm just trying to do what's right," and guilt sprouted, growing like a weed, and I didn't realize that every word he said was a subtle trap to keep me silent, to leave me vulnerable. I was navigating murky waters, unaware that the tide was changing. It sounded like love, but it meant control. That care turned out to be a mask for manipulation, and by the time I realized it, it was too late. The inner struggle between wanting to please and protecting myself became exhausting. Now, listen to me. When this type of conversation starts, use this phrase. I feel like we need some space to understand this better. It's simple, but impactful. It makes you stop. It makes you think. If silence follows, pay attention to the reaction. It reveals more than any spoken word. The rule is clear. Don't accept pressures disguised as concern. If someone truly loves you, freedom is part of that love. And when tension arises, remember, I'm here, but I also need time for myself. So, be cautious. Protect your space. Don't let the shadows of the past hold you back from shining in the present. In the next account, I will share the revelation that changed everything, bringing to light the true face of affection. What I didn't realize was that manipulation didn't come only from subtle words, but also from gestures. He would gift me flowers, always beautiful and carefully chosen. But with each bouquet, there was a bucket of cold water in my heart, as if that affection was tied to a hidden expectation. And then, with every thank you, I felt a shadow over me, as if I had accepted a silent pact. One time, on a rainy night, he decided to cook something special. The aroma filled the house, warm and inviting. I looked into his eyes and saw care, but soon after, the conversation shifted. "I just want you to be happy, but for that, you need to understand that you need me." The connection between love and dependency became clearer, and I didn't realize that, little by little, that love was making me feel small, insignificant, and I didn't see that every apparently romantic gesture hid a trap. One day, while watching the sunset through the window, he interrupted me with a serious look. "Are you sure you're not being selfish? You know I only want what's best for you." My mind spun, caught between reality and illusion. Guilt surged back into me, like an old friend that never left. It was then that I realized the vicious cycle of our relationship. Love intertwined with fear, and I could no longer tell one from the other. It felt like we were dancing in a hall of mirrors. Everything seemed beautiful at first glance, but each movement revealed a distorted reflection. Doubt grew within me like a weed, suffocating genuine feelings. I hated feeling this way. Days passed, and I began to notice that there was something profoundly incomplete within me. It wasn't just love that kept me there, but the hope that things would change. I got tangled in the idea that something could happen, like magic that would fix everything, restoring the security I so desperately desired. And then, during dinner, he said, "If you really love me, you will do this for me." The phrase echoed in my mind like a distant drum, and I didn't realize. The mask began to crumble, and I finally saw that this love was conditional, bound by rules and obligations. The flowers, the romantic dinners, everything came with a price. The nervousness of expectation made me realize that I was losing the ability to be myself. The love that was supposed to set me free was imprisoning me. The sense of being constantly in debt became oppressive, as if I owed him something, even when he did nothing but fulfill an expected role. And then, the climax came. A heated argument over something trivial, where words became sharp knives. I looked into his eyes and saw anger, not love. The truth emerged from the darkness. I had forgotten who I was. That night, amidst the tears, I realized it wasn't the flowers or the dinners that held our relationship together. It was the fear of being alone, of losing someone who promised me love. All I really wanted was to be free. It was when I finally managed to look at myself. The mirror reflected a tired woman, but still a fighter. And I didn't realize that the fight shouldn't be against myself, but against the control I had allowed in. From that moment on, everything became an exercise in resistance. I started saying no to little things. I refused invitations, distanced myself from situations that made me feel bad. And with each no, something inside me began to bloom. I discovered the woman who existed beneath the imposed standards, and she was strong, full of dreams. It wasn't easy, of course. The shadows of the past still whispered in my ears, trying to pull me back. But I remembered that conversation. The phrase that saved me was engraved in my mind. I'm here, but I need time for myself. With each refusal, I was reclaiming my space. It wasn't just about leaving a toxic relationship. It was about recognizing my worth. I fought, started writing again, and told my story without fear, without restrictions. Now, you can also write your story. And remember that if someone loves you, freedom will be part of that love. In the next account, I will share the discovery that finally brought peace to my heart, the true essence of love. The new freedom was like a fresh breeze after a storm that lasted too long. But at the same time, doubt still visited me. One day, while walking through the park, I saw a couple laughing together, wrapped in a universe that was just theirs. What seemed like joy reminded me of the moments when I felt like a prisoner of a disguised love. It was hard not to compare. Those laughs sounded free, without the shackles that had suffocated me for so long. And then, I realized that the fear of loneliness was still there, whispering that I might lose the chance to find someone who truly wanted me. And I didn't realize that this fear could just be a reflection of the past. Another day, I reconnected with friends I hadn't spoken to in a while. Easy conversations, sharing laughs and stories, made me feel alive again. That sense of belonging was a form of healing, but there was still a shadow hanging over me. Insecurity began to emerge, even in the most innocent interactions. I didn't know if the love I was seeking would be real or just a painful repetition of what I had already experienced. That's when I received an unexpected message from an old acquaintance. "Hi, how are you? It's been a while since we've seen each other." My heart raced. Did he remember me? The thought of seeing him again excited me, but it also made me nervous, and I didn't realize that this mix of feelings was a sign that I was still learning to trust. During our meetup, he looked into my eyes with sincerity. His words were simple, but full of meaning. "I miss you. I've always admired your strength." Those little declarations began to unravel the layers of distrust I had built. And as we talked, I realized that vulnerability wasn't a sign of weakness, but a bridge to genuine connection. Then, a vivid memory surfaced from a day in the past when an apparently harmless gesture had turned into a painful reminder. He had given me a gift, a piece of art I admired, a gesture that, at the time, seemed like a kind act, but that I later realized was laden with expectations. Deep down, I knew that true generosity wasn't wrapped in hidden obligations, and I didn't realize that now, while chatting with my friend, there was space for a different kind of affection. No rules, no demands. It was a relief to realize that sharing life could be light and fun. We laughed, shared our ups and downs, and the connection grew, like flowers blooming in spring after a long winter. But there was an unspoken question hanging in the air. What would happen if I started to open up again? If I allowed him into my life? This doubt, like a persistent shadow, still lingered near me. It was then that I decided to put everything into perspective. I was honest with myself. Why was I hesitating? The new things scared me, but they also attracted me. Each day I found myself reconnecting not only with others, but with who I truly was. I began to express what I felt. No more deafening silences, but words flowing like a river finally set free. I learned to articulate what I wanted, what made me happy, and most importantly, what bothered me, instead of swallowing it all and suffocating. One night, while reviewing my notes, I realized how much I had changed. The words on the page reflected a new me, someone willing to take risks. And this brought me a mix of anxiety and hope. My fears, which once seemed like unbeatable monsters, were now merely shadows that I could confront. I began to understand that being open to love did not mean relinquishing my personal space, but rather expanding it. I had the right to be happy, to pursue what I desired without feeling guilty. The freedom I yearned for was within my reach, not in the absence of relationships, but in their presence, healthy and respectful ones. When we saw each other again, I looked into his eyes and said, "I'm here, but I need you to know that I'm rebuilding who I am. It may take me some time to get there." His response was a compassionate smile. And then, for the first time, I realized that opening my heart doesn't mean becoming dangerously vulnerable, but rather allowing someone to see my true essence. Every step taken in the opposite direction of the control I once lived under was a step towards authenticity, and I didn't realize that by doing this, I was not only reclaiming my power, but also opening doors to new possibilities. True love is not possessive, it is liberating. From that moment on, I understood that the real discovery was not just about the new love that could emerge, but about the love I needed to have for myself. In the next account, I will share the journey of how to build healthy boundaries and how those boundaries became the foundation of my new life. In the end, what I didn't realize was that building boundaries wasn't just about saying no, but also about affirming the things I truly wanted. Once, in a conversation with a friend who had always supported me, she said something that resonated deeply. "You don't need to ask for permission to be happy." That phrase echoed like an alarm in my mind. I had spent so much time seeking approval from others that I had forgotten the importance of being the protagonist of my own story. Reflecting on this, I began to identify what truly brought me joy. The little things, like a morning walk, or the pleasure of getting lost in a good book. Each moment became a declaration of freedom. And by doing this, I realized that I was not only reconnecting with myself, but also starting to create a space in my life where relationships could flourish without the weight of fear. I remember one particular night when I decided to do something for myself without thinking about others. I took my old journal, the one I had kept for years, and began to write. The words flowed like a dam finally released. I wrote about my fears, my hopes, the dreams I had left behind. The page was filled with heartfelt confessions, and as I wrote, I realized I was healing parts of myself that had been wounded by love in disguise. And then, as I was writing, a memory surfaced, a childhood recollection of when I used to draw in the sand at the beach, the familiarity of the motion, the freedom of creating without barriers. In that moment, I understood that life is like that sand, moldable, and I had the power to sculpt my own destiny. The desire to return to being that carefree child, unburdened by worries, made me realize that I deserved a love not built on fears, but on respect and admiration. I began exploring new hobbies, activities I had previously hesitated to try. I took dance classes and rediscovered the joy of movement. Dance became a symbol of freedom for me. As I moved, each step was a reminder that I deserved to take up space. I deserved to be seen. It was liberating to realize that I could be as strong as I wished, and that vulnerability, once seen as weakness, now revealed itself to be a source of strength. In this new cycle of self-discovery, the old shadows began to lose their influence. A new light illuminated every dark corner that had once seemed insurmountable. I surrounded myself with people who celebrated my achievements, even the simplest ones. And by doing so, the connection deepened. Not just with others, but also with myself. One time, while sharing a story of overcoming challenges with a new friend, I noticed the positive impact it had created. Her gaze, full of understanding and empathy, reflected what I was finally beginning to see in myself. A whole woman, worthy of genuine love. And so, building healthy boundaries became a continuous act of self-love. I was learning to value every part of myself, and I didn't realize it. But each gentle transformation was preparing me to embrace the unknown. When I reunited with that friend, our meeting was different. We talked about our lives, our challenges, and the trust flowed between us like an invisible thread. He not only respected my space, He admired the woman I was becoming. In that moment, I understood that opening my heart could be safe. It was then that I realized the true transformation had already taken place. Within me, fear was no longer a guide, but a distant shadow. True love didn't require sacrifices. It offered a partnership. And at the end of the night, as we walked together, I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in a long time. The future, once shrouded in doubts and insecurities, now presented itself before me like a blank canvas. In the next account, I will share the journey of how to build healthy boundaries and how those boundaries became the foundation of my new life.